We spared you guys the looking at us cut these boards to size and then figure out, you know, which board goes where and what shape we wanted for this and that other thing. So we're all done with that. Last you saw, we planed these boards flat on one side, and then we used the planer to get them down to the right thickness. So now they're square on one side and we're ready to glue up a panel. The reason you have to glue up a panel is we couldn't find a tree that was big enough once we square everything up to span the entire countertop. So you take it and you glue two edges together, and then you end up with two different boards glued together in a panel. We're going to use something called a biscuit joiner. It just helps you with aligning the boards when you're ready to glue it up, so that it makes it a much easier process for the glue up. You mark a line on your wood or material, and there's a line on top that you line up with your center. You then push in, and it exposes the blade, which is spinning, and then cuts a slot in the wood for you to insert a biscuit. Biscuit is this thing. It's just a little weird shaped, football shaped piece of plywood. And you put glue here, sticks in halfway, and then glue on this side, and it keeps it aligned. That's all it is. The only thing that you really got to be critical about is that you line up your wood exactly how you want it, and then put a line with the straight edge. So now I can see a line right here that's straight across. I have a line on both sides, both pieces of wood. I'm actually going to make that a little bit longer. So after you get your straight line across your two boards, I've got biscuits in a couple of different spots just to help me line it up. Then you need to take it and you can only do one at a time. So I'm going to take one off. Use the fence on the table saw as somewhere solid to push against. Then you just take it and line that little red mark with the line. Turn it on, push, and cut your biscuit. Got all the little slots cut, and you just slide a biscuit in. Now this will help me align the next board when it's time, when we're ready for the glue up. But I have to cut biscuits in the other board too, or cut slots in the other board as well. You have two surfaces now with these divots in them. You would take some glue, or we're going to use epoxy, and you put it down across the surface and inside each hole. Then you're going to insert a biscuit into each hole. And then after you do that, you take your board. I'm going to cover the clamps and something sacrificial, because I do not want to get epoxy on these rails and ruin my clamps, because these clamps are very expensive. Now that we have all of the pieces cut and glued up in their individual sections,
Sorry, I'm coming.
so now that we have all the pieces cut and glued in their individual sections, we're gonna clamp up the whole thing. We don't really have a clamp, nor do we want to make the jig to be able to clamp from the corners. So we're gonna be using draw bolts to pull the whole thing together. And they didn't come long enough, they didn't come long enough, so we went to Home Depot and got a piece of just a bolt, so we could thread these little they're not wing nuts, but they look like wing nuts on there. I've never actually used draw bolts before, but I've seen it done, and they usually have like a router, and they route out a channel, and it's perfect and flat on the sides, and I'm not doing that. I'm going to try and use a Forstner bit. That is not one. You know something we forgot?
What?
Epoxy.
Oh, to buy epoxy?
No, to put it on. We're gonna have to take all these draw bolts back off.